Hi everyone, this video is about the Jeppesen TechStar flight computer, a specialized device for aviation that came on the market in 1992. And electronic flight computers are an interesting offshoot of general purpose calculators because for a long time, and even to this day, aviators use circular slide rules to solve problems such as wind triangles, polar grid navigation, and pressure pattern flying. But in the late 70s, new portable electronic devices were introduced to make these flight planning problems quicker to solve. And so the Commodore N60, the Heathkit OCW 1401, and the Navtronic 1701 were three of the first electronic flight computers, all introduced in the year 1978. And 2 years later, Jeppesen introduced its first electronic flight computer called the Avstar, based on the hardware of the Texas Instruments TI-35. But the TechStar was a Jeppesen designed device, and it was designed to be friendly to use for pilots, and it was approved for use on FAA knowledge examinations. Physically, the design of the TechStar was heavily based on the TI Financial Investment Analyst, or FIA-10, and it shares a similar form factor with an innovative worksheet-style display that's quite intuitive to use. And the TechStar has a 7-line segment-based LCD display. The top 6 lines are used to display menus and enter formula parameters, and the bottom line is used to display digits as they're entered. The keyboard has rubber keys with a top line of control keys, a second line of keys related to conversion menus, and then a number pad section. The calculator has a sloping face and takes 4 AAA batteries. And the TechStar supports basic arithmetic, so if I enter 2 plus 3 times 4 and then hit equals, I will get 20. So it doesn't support order operations, but you can store and recall numbers from one of 6 unnumbered registers. So to store 20 into register 1, I just hit store 1, and then I can hit recall 1 to retrieve that number back. And the device has 5 modes of operation. So there's time, speed, distance calculations, there's altitude and airspeed, there's wind calculations, there's weight and balance calculations, and then there's a timer function. And so the way these modes work is that after selecting mode, you then pick the unknown value you wish to determine. So say we wanted to determine the time it would take to fly 375 nautical miles at 105 knots. We'd hit the mode key and then select time, speed, distance mode, and we want to solve for time. So now we can enter 503 knots into speed and 375 nautical miles into distance, and we can hit the compute key. And so that flight would take 3 hours and 34 minutes. And to solve another problem, you don't need to go through the same flow again. You can just update the input values. So if the plane flew at 120 knots, we could update our speed and then hit compute. You can also hit the compute key again to enter into extended compute screen where any variable can be solved for. And the time, speed, distance mode can also be used to solve for fuel consumption problems. So now that we have our flight time, we can enter our fuel flow. So let's say 9 gallons per hour, and we can hit compute fuel to calculate the fuel needed, so 28.1 gallons. And to solve a problem involving wind, we can pick wind mode. And say we wanted to calculate the ground speed of a plane flying a course of 320 degrees, where we have a true airspeed of 130 knots, and there is a 29 knot wind blowing from 200 degrees. We'll first select ground speed, and we'll enter 200 degrees into the wind direction, 29 knots into the wind speed, 320 degrees into the course and 130 knots into the true airspeed, and we'll hit compute. And so because the wind will blow the plane a little bit faster, the ground speed will be 142 knots. And the TechStar allows results to be written into a scratch pad and used in other calculations. So say we wanted to use our ground speed in another calculation, we can hit a recall and ground speed, and then that number gets copied into the scratch pad. And now we can switch back to time, speed, distance mode, and say we want to solve for time. Or now we can paste that number into our speed parameter and say the distance is 375 nautical miles again. Now we can solve for our time. So that's 2 hours and 38 minutes. And altitude or airspeed mode works in a similar way and allows problems to be solved involving calibrated airspeed, true airspeed, density, altitude, speed in Machs, standard temperature, and true altitude. In weight and balance mode solves problems involving gross weight, center of gravity, and aerodynamic chord. There's also a timer mode, which has several useful features, including computing departure, en route, and arrival times. And you can also access up and down timers. So if I select time up, I can start or pause the timer. And the TechStar can also convert distances, volumes, weights, temperature, or pressures via its conversion menus. So to convert 100 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius, I'll select the WX button and I'll enter 100 into my Fahrenheit and select compute Celsius. So that's 37.7 degrees. So in summary, the TechStar is a really easy to use device to solve many specific aviation problems. I'm not a pilot myself, but I know that student pilots still use this type of device, at least for exams. But it's not clear to me how often they're used for real pre-flight or in-flight planning. If you're a pilot, maybe you can comment below. My guess is that nowadays, though, real world flight planning is mainly done using a flight management system or FMS that is built into the airplane. And the first FMS was made by Honeywell and introduced on the Boeing 767 in 1982. But now integrated FMSs are available in most commercial aircraft. But I think the TechStar is a great example of this interesting offshoot of general purpose calculators. And if you're interested in this category of devices, there are a lot of vintage flight computers available online and they're quite reasonably priced. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to get alerted of new videos.